I want to move on to
Sure.
you mentioned your upbringing in Mississippi. I've been monitoring, and for those who have seen me on the show, I've been on Joy Reid's YouTube show now a few times talking about Nolan Wells and just keeping up with that just tragic case in Mississippi of a young black man, college student, football player who was found dead on July. Well, he went to a party on an island offshore of Mississippi, and then found dead on the shoreline of that island. We've got another potential suspicious circumstance with regard to a woman found hanging recently in her backyard. There's that headline as well. This gets to the heart of so many things, but for me, the law enforcement guy, gets to the heart of complete distrust of law enforcement, which is maybe at its peak right now because of what ICE is doing. But this distrust of law enforcement has existed way before now, particularly in the Deep South. Talk about how you look at these cases and what justice means or doesn't mean anymore in the Deep South.
Yeah, I think, thank you for asking that question. I think, the Nolan Wells case bears the burden of our current state of the country. You can't separate it from the assault on voting rights. You can't separate it from what comes out of the mouth of Stephen Miller. You can't separate it from what Donald Trump's rhetoric sanctions. And so when the sheriff, because I'm from that county, I'm from Jackson County. I grew up 20 minutes, 30 minutes from Ocean Springs. We used to play them in Little League Baseball. I have family who live in Ocean Springs. And so when you have the county sheriff saying, well, almost immediately, and I don't want to get into conspiracy, the evidence has to play itself out, the investigation has to play itself out. But when it's immediately reported that this was an accidental drowning, and then you can't say that and then hide behind process. The only reason why you're hiding behind process is because the parents refuse to accept the initial judgment. And so the initial judgment, unleashes all of this conspiracy theory.
It's a self-inflicted wound.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if law enforcement leaders want to say, well, we've got a population who doesn't trust us. Well, it's you just said that there's no need for an investigation
at the very beginning of it all. And so it took the mother and the father to continue to press the issue in order for there to be a serious investigation. And again, we have to let the evidence, let the investigation run its course. And the evidence will reveal what it will reveal. And then you combine it with all of these mysterious lynchings. I don't know. And in your FBI career, in your law enforcement career, Frank, have you heard at this scale of young Black people committing suicide by way of hanging?
It's extremely rare in my experience. And I even supervised civil rights when I was a supervisor in the San Francisco division. So I had all of Northern California. It's rare. And in the case of this woman we're referencing, the height, my understanding is the height of this tree just doesn't make sense, that she would be climbing up there with her own rope and making this happen. And the family is saying, and I get this, families want to accept the possibility of death by suicide, but they're saying, no, she didn't have any issues. There was no history of mental health or depression. And the practical side of this on the height of the tree and the nature of the tree simply is not making a lot of sense. And so, no. And I've seen some horrible things in supervising civil rights. With the Nolan Wells thing, and again, I'm not the alarmist. I'm not the conspiracy theorist. I tend to let law enforcement do its job and tell us what you found. But I've seen it. I had a case in in wine country of all places, north of San Francisco. A young Black man and his white friends are in a car up there. I think it was Napa, and they literally make a wrong turn. And they find themselves in the midst of a large block party where people are celebrating the departure tomorrow of a young white man who's joined the military, and he's leaving for the military the next day. And to make a very long story short, this young black man literally made a wrong turn and ended up dead. And I've seen it. I've seen it even in wine country. You can make a wrong turn and end up dead. And the questions, that I think of with Nolan Wells, he was chatting up a young white girl. Is that what killed him? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. And of course, social media makes everything so much more difficult and so much more accessible.
Yeah.
But I would urge your listeners to go look at this website entitled The Crimson Record. And the Crimson Record, I don't know the statistics. I don't know how we might think about its, the way in which it's gathering its data. But what we see is a chart, a graphic of lynchings across the South since 2020. And she calls it the Crimson Record because it's an echo of Ida B. Wells's 1922, The Red Record, which was an account of lynching in the 1920s. And so she's looking at all of these deaths, and Mississippi is at the top, Frank, again. Mississippi is at the top of the list again.
Yep.
So I think, going back to the heart of the question, there's a deep suspicion of law enforcement because our communities have always been historically over-policed and underprotected. Over-policed and underprotected.
Sure. And the history of policing, particularly in the South, is to maintain the status quo. Period.
Yeah. And so our communities kind of, they have to fight like these parents. Because think about it. Think just really quickly. They have to grieve and fight at the same time. They have to bury their baby while they're fighting for justice for their baby.
And by the way, Nolan Wells' mom particularly is doing that, and kudos to her, and sad that we need that to happen. Real quick as we wrap, I want to, because the media is so essential right now. You sit on the board of directors for Deep South Today.
Yeah.
What is Deep South Today? What is that?
Well, it's this amazing conglomerate of local news, hardcore reporting. One of the things we've seen over the course of our time in media is the corporatization of media, right? And one of the things that's been lost as we've seen the consolidation of media is that access to actual news, local news, has become more and more rare. And with Deep South Today, and Mississippi Today in particular, one of pillars of breaking the story around welfare, breaking the story around local sheriffs throughout the state, offers us an insight into a kind of deep reporting that we once had, but we've lost. And so I am really excited about my work on the board. Because we see it not only in Mississippi, we see it in New Orleans. Now we're seeing it we're going to move in Arkansas, beginning in Arkansas. And what you see is this effort, Frank, to give ordinary people the information, not only to engage in self-governance, but to hold power accountable. That's why it's the fourth estate. And,
Yes,
and the local news matters as much as our national stories.
Yeah, I'm glad you're a part of that.